Sandy Hook was a tragedy, um, something that these many years past, I think about all too often. But the simple fact of the matter is, when that tragedy occurred, upwards of 30 different laws that were in place at that time were broken by that individual. The situation yesterday, a tragedy in another state. I don't think there's any portion of this law that purports to address gun violence would have prevented. Well, we heard at the public hearing, and I will note at the public hearing, this is essentially the governor's bill. The foundation is the governor's bill. However, no one from the governor's office appeared before the committee to stand up for their bill. No one from the state police appeared before the committee to talk about their bill. Now, the only thing I can take away from that is there's not uniform support. We put up bills all the time. We go before committees. We talk about the problems. We try and work on language. Not with this. The term ghost guns, it's a manufactured term. Basically what it means is a firearm without a serial number. Well, up until 1968, no firearms in this country had serial numbers. And presently it's illegal for one who is a prohibited person to be in possession of a firearm, whether it's got a serial number or not. And further, if somebody creates one of these unserialized firearms and they want to transfer it to another individual, for almost 10 years now in this state, it's been a requirement that any transfer has to be approved by the state police. In order to get that approval, you need a serial number. I didn't recall any mayor coming before us and saying that they have a problem because people are being found with unserialized firearms and they can't be prosecuted. The whole ghost gun bill went into place in 2019. The federal law hasn't changed with regard to that. I don't know how that possibly addresses gun violence. I don't think any member of my caucus is in favor of gun violence. In fact, I would assert that members of my caucus are opposed to all violence. Knives, baseball bats, all of those things. It's improper for another human being to employ violence against another human being unless in self-defense. Before I got up here many years ago, I was, as many of you heard, I was an anti-gun individual. I didn't think anybody should own a firearm. And I've changed over the years. I've certainly learned differently. But I understand, the public hearing, it was quite clear there were people that came before us that just wanted to ban guns. And that's troubling, because I want to have the debate about the language. But I understand the goal. And I think that underlying philosophy permeates some of what's before us here today. Being able to purchase more than one gun in a 30-day period does absolutely nothing for this specter of gun violence. I don't want dangerous people to be in possession of firearms. It's fundamental. So if a dangerous person purchases a firearm, them getting another firearm, does that make them more or less dangerous? In my opinion, they shouldn't have been able to purchase the first firearm in most instances. What we hear is that this will prevent straw purchases. Well, straw purchase, another made-up term, is basically where one goes into a gun store and purchases a firearm with the intent to sell to another. Well, one of the forms you have to do when you purchase a firearm is a federal form. Question number one, are you buying this gun for yourself? If you lie on the form, it's a felony. We put in place a law, I believe it was 2012, that requires that if anybody's guns are lost or stolen, you're required to report that to the police within 72 hours. You learned it was lost or stolen, or you should have learned it was lost or stolen. That was put in place to ostensibly address the individuals who were in possession of firearms. Gun was sold to someone else. Investigation incurred. Police came to the individual. Individual says, well, the gun was lost. It was stolen. So one who purchases more than one firearm, and, you know, straw purchases are illegal, but the firearm is found in the course of commerce, they're going to be pinched for violating the reporting law. So more than one firearm per month does absolutely nothing here. We have another provision that wasn't addressed previously, and it requires an additional license for sellers of firearms in Connecticut. Well, most people don't know that they're already licensed by the feds. You need an FFL, a federal firearms license, to sell firearms in Connecticut. So why does the state want to go there? Well, you have to look at the revocation proceedings. So the law says that you can't sell a firearm unless you have this special state license, right? So how can they revoke it from these individuals? They could be late on their taxes. They're going to lose their license. That's one of the provisions. They could be determined by the commissioner to not be a suitable person. Those of you that have practiced in this area or appeared before the Board of Firearms, you will learn that, you know, the suitability standard, extremely gray. Making a misleading representation to the public. Now, what is that? I'm going to be open on Mondays, but I'm not. We don't know. And the fines that are in here, $25,000. It's quite clear what this bill tries to do. Tries to go after an industry. There's no other statute in this state that has a $25,000 fine. The permitting process is talked about in the bill. Also, there are certain requirements. As we look at the permitting process, especially in the cities, you'll see that the system is broken. You go to any police station in our cities and try to apply for a pistol permit today. They'll tell you to come back 6 months from now. Try and do the same for a parade, you know, First Amendment right to express yourself in a parade. Let them try and tell you to come back 6 months from now. This should be treated the same. You go and try and file an application to file and to follow the lawful process. Shouldn't be a bar at the door. Try and apply in the city of Waterbury, where they currently have an authorization you have to sign that gives the police access to your medical records in order to apply for a pistol permit in Connecticut. So the system is broken.